Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. And it is Monday. It's December 5th. This will be our chart listen for the day. And really what looked like was going to be a, you know, really slow range day. In the end, it was a range day, but we really traded down most of the afternoon, most of the late morning and afternoon. Um, wasn't real strongly, but there were still some trades in here. This was a pretty clear trend. If you just drew that trend line off those first two swings, it met up here and confirmed it. And you drop it down to the bottom, you find your midpoint in there, and I mean, it worked out really like clockwork. But you had to sit and be very patient until then because there was only a couple of trades till it really picked up right about 10 o'clock. And there were a few trades and one late afternoon trade. But this is a range day, really. We traded up strongly during the overnight, but from that point forward, um, prices were really trading between, I'd just call it 21.99 and really 22.08. So uh, not even quite 10 points there. So not a lot of room for movement. But when you get a steady trend like this, all your best trades, of course, are always off the key entry points. And that's going to be your trend line and your horizontal support and resistance. And a trend line is just a slanted support and resistance line. So, uh, but yeah, not a whole lot to talk about today. Really slow, and this is where you have to be patient. And I talked with another trader about this today. Um, that really what separates an average trader from a good trader is probably just patience and the ability to be able to um, just to be able to sit there on your hands and do nothing when there's no trade. To be disciplined, basically, is the word I was looking for. But just to be patient and disciplined. And a patient and disciplined trader can far outdo an equal trader that's not patient or disciplined. So just remember that. But let's talk about the trades. You can see there wasn't much happening until around 10 o'clock is when it started up. Uh, Otherwise, it's just not much here. You might have considered an entry here. I went back and forth about whether to mark it, but I didn't want to trade it. So if I wasn't willing to trade it, I don't think you want to mark it. But we'll talk about it. I'll go ahead and put it there. Uh, and you might have actually even got suckered in here because there's a little double test, but this does make a lower low. But this also makes a lower low. But by that time, you can you can tell that there's support across there. We didn't have a new low. The real reason that I didn't like going long there is we didn't quite have a new low in yet. And sometimes you'll get that break and then it pushes to a new low, then it goes higher. So that's why I like this one better than this one. Even though this setup looks pretty good, we just have a double top there and we don't have a new low in yet. So, but we'll talk about that again when we get back to it. I'm trying to back out here. I'm having a hard time making this really much bigger. But you can see we trended up. We turned down. And I was looking at the bigger channel here too. And maybe it's still valid. It looks like it probably was trying to be. But it didn't really come into play. You didn't really need it. You might have considered going long right here. You really could argue for that one all the way across because there's support here. It's at the bottom. And you could argue for that one to be blue. It's not a second entry, but it's just going so. There's so much congestion right there, and there is one doji in there, so that's the reason I'm not crazy about making it blue, but I'll leave it green. But notice what's going on here. This is almost the same thing here, but again, you got a doji in here. I originally had this one marked green, but I'm a little leery of it, just simply because every time we went higher, we'd push down and make a little lower high, and we finally made a double bottom there, and it's right where there was some previous support. So you might consider that one, but it's still everything's below the EMA, and we're just stacked up there in that congestion. There's not much room to the double top. So, I'm real hesitant of it. I think you're better off to wait. And notice what happens. You push through and you push past all this and make this high. and you got a trend line working right up off those bars right there, and it pulls back and tests it and gives you a nice bullish bar. I like that one. That's the first trade I saw that I even really wanted to strongly consider, and it's almost 9 o'clock now. It's 8:50 or so. We do get the, and this you can also, this is really a failed second entry short here. You get a newer low, it's lower than that one. So that's a first entry, and then you pull back a second entry. But really, most of the time, you're better off counting these double bottoms as a new low. So this is where your failed second entry comes in. And this one you could almost argue to be blue as well. The reason I didn't like making it blue is because it's right into that overnight high. And you don't have a lot of room there. And you're going to get burned on some of those if you take them all. So that's going to be an aggressive trade. And then we come back to the trend line again right here. But again, it's the same thing. You're having to go long into the high. And I'm just not crazy about it. You need to get in these trades further down here somewhere. And this was really the ideal spot to get in it. This one, you know, you could argue for this one as well. But then we get our reversal type pattern here. We didn't push through the EMA, but it's still a failed second entry long, and it fails and turns down. So I like going short there. That was a nice little quick trade. It actually pulls back one more time, and this one I wasn't sure if the trend line's really here or here, but I think it's really here. And we just had a little push outside there, but you can see that holding. So I played that as the trend line the way I have it there, and with a break already and a move to a new low, but we still made the new low here, and you had to be wondering, and it's possible that this is a two-tiered. I mean, you could actually argue for that one to be two-tiered, and then so this would be your first break, and then you get your new low here, and this is there's actually a second entry long right there, like I said, but I explained this one earlier. We didn't have a new low in yet, and you got to be, and we weren't back to what I was considering the trend line way down here, so I was real leery of this. Even entering on the new low, I was still leery of it, but you can argue for that one. And if you want to be aggressive, you could take that one. Your stop needs to go below that doji, but I was really using that as my signal bar. And you can see you never would have taken any heat on that trade. It was a quick, easy move. And then we turned down right up here where this last high. We actually pushed through these highs right here. And you get a big bearish bar. And there's a second entry right there. But if you'd taken that trade, you'd have got burned. I don't have it on here, but you need to have your trend line. And you can see that that would be the first break, and then you get a push up to a new high, and then you might consider going short. This was a fairly bearish bar, but most of the time you're better off to wait on the second, the lower high before you enter, and that didn't come to here, but I still kind of like that one. We're looking for prices to come back to this trend line, and now you do have your break and a new high, and that's the reason I don't like going long there. Look at all that resistance, and then this high is right there. You're better off to wait on the short, and then it pulls back and does make a lower high. Big bearish bar. Just make the only critical piece here is you have to have room on this one to get out before here. Otherwise, you got to use a limit order to enter. And then, of course, you get your another test of all this and look at them stacking up there. That's the reason I'm a little leery about going short on that bounce off that low. Plus, we went through the EMA, the trend line, so I'm really wondering what's going on here now. Now I'm wondering if we're going to get a break. And we came up way short up here. You can see the difference between there and up there. Does that mean a lot of times it means you're going to overshoot it by that much. So you end up getting the trap. Plus, you got to draw this trend line, and you got to go long right into that trend line, and it does hold. but it comes back and tests it again. So when it tests it again and fails and you get that big bearish bar, I like going short there. You had to be a little concerned about this support here too. So, but really your entry's right here, and you probably could have used the limit order and got a little better entry, but you probably need to have room to get out here before entering on this one. Otherwise, see if you get a breakout pullback short and a lower high, which comes right here. So this one's real close to being green, but there's still some reasons to argue for that one to be red. And if you got enough room to get out before here, then by all means it'd be red. This is where you're better off to wait and enter. And notice this is a double top, so this is a failed second entry long right off the EMA. It's the first break of that trend line working down. Nice bearish bar. I like entering again there. And of course it bounces right where you would expect it to, and we head back up to the other side. And you might have considered going long here. Notice there's a double bottom and then a higher low here, but that's right into the midline, and that could be a little bit iffy. So I think you're better off to wait and see if you don't get a short up here. And notice that not only is that off that trend line, but this support, that's a retest of that support area again. So you got a couple of reasons to like going short right there. And of course, if you draw that trend line, you might have drawn it like that and you wouldn't necessarily be wrong. But generally I try to get it off the first few closes, and then you also want to do the two swings too. So I think this is probably correct here, doing it like this. So you come to the same conclusion really, although you may not have gone short here. You might have waited on the lower high after the break, but you get a break here and you tried to go higher, but you can't because you got this strong trend line, and you can see how many times we've turned down off that trend line. So I'm definitely want to go short here. I still like this one just for the other reasons I talked about. And then of course you get your another chance right here. It confirms that trend line, big bearish bar. Go short there. You might use a limit order here and let it come back a tick or two just to get a little more room for here. Make sure you got enough room. But we're probably headed to the lower side here, and it is off that trend line. That's a key entry point on a smaller time frame. And it actually pulls back one more time, but now you got 4 bars stacked up there, and you got a doji in there. That's congestion. It is a pullback to test this breakout area here, and it is off that key entry point. It is off the midline. You do still have room here, so technically you could argue for that to be green. I'll make it green, but again, I think you're better off to just sit tight. This is where being patient and having discipline comes in, because even though this one worked this time, it may not work next time. And then of course now we're going sideways. I don't have a little line here, but notice what happens. You got your break of this trend line and a move to a new low. Still got to move to a new low, and then it bounced right off that line. And it's a little failed break lower here below that double bottom. So I like that one just to try to catch it back to the other side late in the day. And you could have ridden this one all the way up. It was easy scalp. You wouldn't have got much more out of it. But if you'd have ridden it out to the close of the day, you'd have got a couple points out of it. Do you really want to risk that late in the day? I'd probably take my scalp. And if you want to try for a runner, you might, but I doubt it. With this being a buy off the low side, and I'm sure some of you will probably say, well, hey, you're counter trend trading on this trend down, but if you're looking at the bigger picture, this is a range day. And if you just drag this, well, can't get my line straight now, but anyway, you see what I'm saying there. There's the range, and you got a little failed break lower, and you're looking for a bounce up. So that's the reason I like. There are a few longs in here, even though we're trading down, and we're trading down here too. So you're hoping to try to catch a low of the day is what you're trying to do there. So, and yeah, that was it. But if all you needed was a couple of these, and you'd have a pretty good day. And you don't have to counter trend trade. And you don't have to pick any low probability ones. There's 3 or 4 right down through here off the main trend line working down. But you had to be patient today, and you definitely had to sit and wait. So, but yeah, not much else we can say about today. So I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow, but I'm out of here for today. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.